There's been a plethora of newcomers who have stood out for Arizona football. Which ones are probably going to redshirt? Which ones are probably going to play?
You are Locked On Wildcats, your daily podcast on the Arizona Wildcats. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks for keeping it Locked On Wildcats and making this your first listen of the day. Locked On, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you today by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Okay, now we are going to talk a lot of Arizona football today. We're going to talk about the wide receiver position, newcomers. There's a lot of newcomers across the board that are obviously very, very good. We need to get to all of those. So let's basically, we talked about the wide receiver. Let's talk about the wide receiver to begin with. And the one that has really, really stood out for the entire camp has been Gio Richardson. Gio Richardson has been great for the University of Arizona. Kid out of Basha. Obviously, he had some offers, Vanderbilt, Kansas State, schools like that. But he decided that the best option for him was Arizona. And I'm going to be honest with you. He broke his leg at the end of his season last year. And I don't think that anybody really expected him to be able to play this coming season. As a matter of fact, I certainly didn't. But he has gotten himself back into shape to where he can play, and he can play immediately. And I think that's going to be the exciting part about all of this. You watch him, and he's a different player. He's a kind of guy. He's big. He's physical. Not only is he big and he's physical, he's also the kind of guy too that when you watch him, you can just be like, okay, cool. He kind of slipped through the cracks to a certain degree, and I think that's something that when you look at, you're just kind of like, all right, fair enough. What is his big picture though? What can he do? And I think that is where you're kind of at, and you're like, okay, we'll find out. But I do think we're kind of at a point now where you're like, all right, he's going to play, and he's forced his way in. There's a lot of people like a Isaiah Mizell, who's obviously very, very good, like Isaiah Mizell a lot. But he's also a little bit smaller. He's also going to take a little bit more time. I don't think that's anything that, again, I don't think I'm really breaking any news. Richardson's ready to go in and physically compete right now. And he, like I said, he's been awesome for Arizona. Goes to show too that this coaching staff has decent ability to be able to find and develop talent. And that's something that a lot of coaching staffs just don't have. That ability to be able to find somebody a little bit under the radar and say, you know what, a little bit of this, a little bit of that, and we can turn you into something that's obviously pretty good. Richardson is definitely that. You look at the wide receiver room, outside of Chris Hunter, it's almost all new. Now, if you were to ask me who is going to be the leading wide receiver on this team, I would probably go Chris Hudson. But Javin Watley is right there as well. Not only is Javin Watley right there, there's also some other guys as well that are just, like I said, that are pretty darn good football players. And I think with Watley, the exciting part about it too is that he can beat you deep. He can also take a play and go. And he's one of these guys as well. And we always talk about this. If you're from a smaller school, I need you to produce. I need you to be somebody that, is somebody that balled out against better players. Like if you're, like I said, I mean, it's kind of like, with like a Gotcher or something. I had a hard time seeing him actually be good, mainly because he was at Northwestern State and they didn't really do much. I mean, it was a terrible defense. That's generally not the case. But like I said, it's the wide receiver room, Watley, Hudson, Richardson. Wysong is super solid. Again, is he great? No. Is he going to play in the NFL? Probably not. But he is a super solid football player. And that's what you're really going for if you're Arizona. You just need solid football players. Wysong is definitely a solid football player. So that's a good part. But the whole wide receiver unit is obviously revamped. Looks really, really good. Then at that running back position, then that's where it gets interesting. Wesley Yarborough is probably going to I don't know how he plays, but he also might just be too good to keep off the field. And I think that's something that, when you watch him, you're like, okay, this guy, he's got some next level burst to him, and he's big. He's big. He's strong. He's physical. What you want a running back to look like is exactly what he does look like. But again, you've got a Kedrick Reesino in front of him. You've also got somebody like a an Ishmael Mahdi, Quincy Craig. There's a lot of talent in front of him. Not only is there a lot of talent in front of him, there's also a lot of players that you watch and you're just kind of like, okay, cool. Like, there's a little bit of a disparity there. But it wouldn't surprise me at all if Yarborough plays, just because he's good and he's going to get 4 games, and then from there we'll see what happens. Now at the offensive line position, then Ty Buchanan and Tristan Bounds, those are probably going to be your tackles right now. Coaching staff's very happy with both of them. And, regardless of, some of the background, they kind of fit the bill. One guy in Ty Buchanan played and started a lot at Texas Tech. The other guy, Tristan Bounds, he's from Michigan. That's my thing. If a guy is from a school like Michigan and he doesn't play much, I don't really care about that. That doesn't really mean a ton to me, because Michigan, kind of like Georgia with BBN, that's a totally different ball game. That's a totally different realm. So if that doesn't, like I said, if they don't play well in a spot like that, okay, cool, whatever. I'm totally fine with that. That doesn't mean a lot to me. But those are going to be your tackles. So far, they played pretty well. We'll see exactly, what plays out from there, but it's going to be interesting. Then DeCambra is probably going to be your most solid guard, or he would have been, but he's going to probably play center. He's been solid. He could be a day 6 pick. He could be something like that. And if he's a day 6 pick or something like that, then I think that, like I said, you can look at it and you can probably be like, okay, cool. I could see how that one does play out. But it's going to be fascinating all the way across the board just to see how this does work. Now, the next thing about this, it's going to be interesting is you got 2 guards then that are obviously returning in Deuced and Rhino, who they're probably going to move inside. Both those guys are returning, but if those are your guards, if they feel comfortable enough to put Rhino inside, probably feel okay about that one. Then Braden Locke, listen, he didn't play very well at Wisconsin. I get all that, but at the end of the day, he's been pretty good here. Most people don't expect him to be here next year, mainly because he's too good to be a backup, at least from what we've seen in camp. We'll see how it does play out. But the newcomers, though, have been impressive. Again, I'm not going to sit here and say that this is going to be a great team. It's not. If Arizona were somehow to sneak into a bowl, I would absolutely take that. I would absolutely say, take that and run with it. But at the same time, I don't know that it's out of the realm of possibility. He is it's a team that I think is better pretty much across the board, even though you lost some high-level talent. I'm still not buying the offensive line having better players, but they do have better depth. So, that's obviously something that goes into this as well. I do think that this is also going to be fascinating too, as to what exactly is the deal then with the coaching staff, because you got some new guys in there. Seth Dagey is obviously a new face. He's a newcomer. Got a lot of faith in Seth Dagey. I watched Seth Dagey for 5 minutes and I'm like, man, that dude gets it. Not only does Seth Dagey get it, you just kind of see how the players react to him, how everything just kind of unfolds. And it makes like I said, it makes a lot of sense. So we shall see. But I'm bullish on the offense. To me, the offense has to be the one that's going to carry the team. We'll see what Danny Gonzalez can conjure up. I don't know that it's going to be anything that that's going to be next level. But at the same time, that's kind of, like I said, that's just kind of where we're at this stage. All right, so that's a big part about all of this. Now, the next thing is with this team. The defense, because you got a lot of different guys on the defensive side of the football. And if the defensive side of the football, and if that's kind of what's going on, it's going to be an interesting situation to see how it plays out. Danny Gonzalez is obviously he's not a new name, But he's also here though for the like I said, he's also here though for the first time. He's going to be, like I said, it's going to be an interesting thing to watch how exactly he does play out. But there's also a name that has been wrecking heads in camp, and we're going to have to see about him. But first, game time, my friend. Game time. Check it out. Here's the deal with Game Time. Download the Game Time app today. Use code LOCKEDONCollege. And again, you'll thank me later, but we've all been there. You're waiting for a concert, you're waiting for tickets, whatever the case may be, and you're like, all right, I'm about to hit send, or I'm about to hit, verify, and womp, womp, womp. Doesn't work. That is annoying. I hate stuff like that. Game Time doesn't allow that to occur. And again, and that's cool. The cool thing about Game Time too, you also get to make some money in the process. Tired of endless scrolling, trying to find the best deal? Game Time Zone Deals picks the best seat in the house for you. Ever wonder what view you're actually going to get? A lot of times you'll get it and you're like, man, I have no clue what I'm going to be looking at. You don't want any of that. You want to be able to just say, man, this is what I'm doing. This is what I'm looking at. And Game Time has that. So again, with Game Time, the price you get is always the price that, take the guesswork out of buying concert and show tickets, and to download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for, like I said, use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONCollege. Download the Game Time app. Last minute tickets, lowest prices guaranteed. Thanks for keeping it locked on Wildcats and making this your first listen of the day. I am your host, Mike Luke. All right, now let's talk a little bit about what that next step is then for Arizona on the defensive side of the football. Now, the defensive side of the football is also interesting here. So that's kind of what you want to see. Danny Gonzalez first. He's a new coach there. Danny Gonzalez is very, very interesting in all of this. Danny Gonzalez is obviously a really, really good. He's obviously a really, really good defensive mind. He's been very well thought of throughout his time at ASU, and even at New Mexico. Just wasn't a great head coach. I get it, but he's going to say, he's saying we got to find out a way to be able to, diversify our game to a certain degree, to be able to diversify a lot of that. So now the one thing about it that also is very interesting, though, is that he's got a new defensive line to work with here. The first thing is Malachi Bailey. This has become a thing. Malachi Bailey, guy out of Alcorn State, put up a lot of numbers there. And he's shown out in camp. I think if you're Arizona, you're really hoping that Malachi Bailey can be that guy for you. If you have him and Riley Wilson as two newcomers, and I'm putting the number at 7 sacks. If you can get 7 sacks between those two guys, I think you're feeling pretty good about it. Keep in mind, this is a team last year that didn't really have any pass rushers outside of Trey Smith. You need to be able to get that. And, but that's kind of where we were at this. Now, the next thing about it as well is that you're also kind of in the same stage where you're kind of at the same stage where you're kind of like, all right, well, what's the deal here? What's the deal then with some of the new guys on the interior? Tia Savea and Deshaun McKnight. I'm more than okay with both of those guys. If it's Tia Savea and Deshaun McKnight, don't got any problem with that one. The problem, though, after that is I just don't know about the depth. You got Leroy Palu. He's tough, but, obviously unproven. You kind of wish that you had a few others. That was kind of the beauty of what Jed was able to do the one year here is that you had a lot of different guys. You had Deuce Davis. You had Isaiah Ward. You had Bill Norton. You had Tia Savea. You had Tyler Manoa. You had Taylor Upshaw. Were able to just basically keep throwing defensive linemen out there. It's a little bit different now in the NIL era. So, I don't know exactly how that's going to play out, but we'll see. It's going to be interesting, though. I think Arizona's got an interesting setup for sure. Now, the other thing, though, is that it's a totally revamped. Who is going to be that? Are they going to go with a 4-2-5? Is it going to be a 3-3-5? Are you going to see guys with hands on the ground? Danny Gonzalez, like I said, he's been known to be able to put guys in position to be able to make plays. The thing about it that you worry about with a 3-3-5 is basically being hit with slants over the middle. That's something that ASU fans obviously have talked about quite a bit. That was their one frustration with him. But the D-line, is it better than last year? Probably. I don't know that for a fact, but it probably is. Last year at the defensive line, you had Chuba and Isaiah Johnson. And this year you have Tia Savea, Deshaun McKnight. That's probably better. Then last year, obviously, you had Tai Uiagalelei, and then you had Trey Smith on top of that. There is it's interesting here. This is a fascinating situation unfolding, but I think there's a little bit better depth. You got Trey Smith back, obviously, so that helps. But like I said, there's going to be a work in progress. There's going to be something where I think every single day you're just hoping to see a little bit more from Arizona, a little bit more, and you just kind of keep picking that one up. And like I said, you hope that you can basically just kind of run with it from there. But like I said, the D-line, you're hoping that it should be a little bit better. Now, the linebacker position, I think the linebacker unit should be just as good. Jacob Manu, his first 2 years here was awesome. Like I said, he was basically his sophomore year, he was almost an All-American type. But the problem though is that you're kind of at a spot now where you don't want to, you got Tate Brown. That's going to be a good one. And I'll think a lot of it though, you're also kind of depending on, all right, is Riley Wilson going to be playing a linebacker? So it's tough to really rate. I expect the linebacker unit to be about the same. I don't know that it's going to be much different, but I expect it to kind of be about the same. It'll be fascinating to find out. Now, the secondary, though, that's going to be interesting. I think the secondary should be vastly improved. Last year, you got Tacario Davis back last year. The thing with Tacario Davis, though, is Tacario Davis just wasn't good. I think you read his press clippings, whatever the case may be, but he was annoying to watch. You watched Tacario Davis, and the thing that you kept coming back to was when he would get beat, and then he would push a guy out of bounds, and then he would start talking crap to him or something. It's like, come on, dude, what are we doing here? And that was time and time and time again. He is the guy that, like I said, when you look at it, you also kind of know for a fact that, he just wasn't bought in. The guys on this secondary are bought in. Now, Michael Dansby and Aiden Garnes, that's become a thing. Now, you could say, well, they weren't necessarily good at their previous stops. Maybe they're going to be good here. But they've certainly shown out. Then you got MGK and you got Javion Cole. The thing that you can definitely argue is that Arizona has a deeper secondary. And because last year you had guys like Freeney and trying to remember who even else was, like just the guys that just weren't good enough at this level. Emmanuel Carnley. So you got 4 guys that are better than some of your backups last year. How does it play out? We'll see. A big thing for this team is you need Traden Stukes to come back. You need Traden Stukes to be healthy. Not only do you need Traden Stukes to be healthy, you need, like I said, you need him to be healthy. You need him to be ready to go because, like Dwayne Aquino would always say, that's one of the best nickelbacks in the country. He's a really, really good football player, and he's a guy that's basically forced his way into the rotation. Not only has he forced his way into the rotation, he's also shown that, he's a good team guy. Not only is he a good team guy, he's also somebody that you watch and you're like, okay, I kind of get it. So there's that. Then in the secondary's good as well. At the safety position, Genesis Smith, Dalton Johnson, both those guys. But there is one guy in here that is a little bit different than basically everybody else on the team. Thanks for keeping it locked on Wildcats and making this your first listen of the day. I am your host, Mike Luke. Okay, now let's talk a little bit about the secondary, primarily the safeties. Genesis Smith's the best NFL prospect on the team. Arizona's had first-round picks the last 2 years. If they want to continue that for a third year, Genesis Smith's going to be that guy. Obviously, he's not at a premium position, but he's good. He's 6'3", 205 pounds. And he can run. He's got great ball skills, and he's somebody that you can just win football games with. The fact that Arizona was able to hold on to him was a huge difference because I expect Genesis Smith to be an all-conference player, and it wouldn't surprise me at all if he puts up All-American numbers this year. He is he's a stud. And then right next to him, you got Dalton Johnson. I love Dalton Johnson. Dalton Johnson he's probably not going to play in the NFL, but he's a guy that has just been solid since he's been here. You watch him for 5 minutes, and you can see, okay, that's a guy that he gets football. And he's kind of a stabilizing factor out there. I remember, Jed's first year here when it was Christian Young out there, and you're like, all right, what are we doing? And then you get, and then Dalton Johnson starts playing, and immediately everything becomes a lot better. So there's obviously that, but I expect the secondary to be much better. This is all going to come down to the pass rush, though. If Arizona can have a decent enough pass rush, I think the defense can be decent enough. You watch them last year, and the thing with Danny Gonzalez is that, like I said, it's up to him to be able to find a pass rush from all different kinds of positions, and we'll find out if he's up to that. But he's going to be, Brent Brennan's really, he's really tying his future to two guys here. Danny Gonzalez, he obviously loves Gonzalez, and it's one of those guys too that the hiring has grown on me quite a bit. And not only is the hiring grown on me quite a bit, he is like I said, he's an interesting guy. So we shall see. It'll be fascinating to find out how exactly this does all play out. So there is that. Now, the next thing too that we need to talk about, though, is also on the offensive side. Seth Doege, is he going to be able to make this team go? Is he going to be able to make this team be that team offensively? Because I think I need Arizona to have a top 6 offense in the Big 12. If Arizona's got a top 6 offense in the Big 12, I think Arizona's probably going to be in pretty good shape. If they don't have a top 6 offense in the Big 12, well, they're probably not going to be in good shape. They've got their talent is certainly there for this team to be good. It's just going to be, what is that next, like I said, just kind of what's that next level going to be for this team? And I don't know that I don't know that answer. And I don't know that a lot of people really know that answer. And I think that's what's kind of enticing about all of this is finding out exactly what that is, So like I said, we shall see, but the staff's definitely better. I mean, I actually thought Dwayne Aquina did a decent job as the DC. I never looked at I thought the defense was just fine until, basically all the injuries kicked in and people started getting hurt. Then, that obviously the dam kind of broke at that point. But overall, I thought it was okay. But, maybe if the defense can be up a little bit, and I expect the offense to be much better. And if it's not, then, well, that's a problem. A lot of eyes are going to be on Josh Oglesby. Didn't do a good job last year as the offensive line coach, but that next level then is going to be, where are we next? Where are we next when it comes to Oglesby, when it comes to being able to get guys in position to be able to make plays. Last year he took a pretty talented unit and he put a bunch of guys in it doing different stuff that they had never done before, and it showed. There was just no communication. I think this year you're hoping that can be a little bit different. This is another guy that obviously Brent Brennan has basically put his his stamp on. So we'll see. But this is like I said, the closer we get, the more I think that this is a fairly talented team in certain positions. Like I said, I love the wide receivers. We'll see how it does play out from there and, what to be expected. Now, tomorrow, we're going to talk about the returners. We're going to talk about what to expect out of the returners because, like I said, this is going to be another one as well where you're going to have, there's some expectations there. What can these guys provide? What can they provide from that position? You got a Noah Fafita. You got a Kedrick Reesano. You've got a Chris Hunter. Guys like that. Rhino. What can you expect to see from them? It'll be interesting to see. So we will, like I said, we will find out. But like I said, you get to a bowl game, it's a win for Arizona this year. You got to be realistic, but I want the offense to be good. If the offense is good, then that means the team is going to be more exciting. But a lot of that is also going to rely on who are those guys in the secondary that, can they step up and make plays? And Noah Fafita. We're going to talk a lot about Noah tomorrow. Can Noah get back to that freshman form? I don't know, and I don't think anybody really knows. But it's going to be interesting to watch how that does play out. This team, though, like I said, I think they got a puncher's chance. So we will find out. All right. But as always, very, very much appreciate you all making Locked On Wildcats your first listen of the day. Locked On, your team every day. Season is less than 3 weeks away, my friends. Bear down, back the A, and we will be back with you tomorrow talking about some returners.